Hey, if you in the truck, you gonna stand up. Rep the Midwest, get it hype. This the ramp up. Hey, the ramp up. Never hit the brakes. Break it down day to day. Show the people what it takes. The ramp up, the ramp up.
Well, welcome to the 8th episode of The Ramp Up. We have a very special guest today, Justin Hall with Augment.
Good to be with
Thanks
you,
for
boys.
chatting with
Good
us.
to be with you, boys.
Thanks for chatting us with man. First time we saw you was in Vegas at Manifest, and
Yeah.
you're telling me about this project you were working on, had some funding, and
Super
just to keep an eye out. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
super
cryptic website, and then one day I was keeping an eye on it. The website looked a lot different, and I started seeing Augment creeping into the news pretty quickly. So a lot's changed, man. How's the progress been going?
It's been phenomenal. I think the funnest part of building a company is team building, right? I mean, we were all together in Chicago. We called it AuggieCon. The company's Augment, and we call our AI teammate Auggie, which is kind of cool. But you can call it whatever you want. We actually have a customer that's named it Bob. We've got one that has named it Buzz. So you can call it whatever you want. But anyways, we had AuggieCon in Chicago, and there's all 75 of us together for the first time. Our offices are in SF in Toronto and in Chicago, and then we have a few others distributed around the country. I'm here in Minneapolis. And it was just like awesome, like just culture building, but like just being in person, hugging and dabbing up your employee. It's just, you think to yourself like, wow, like we went 0 to almost 80. Well, now we're north of 80 right now, like that. And I don't feel like we've missed. Like we haven't missed. Like we just have awesome people. They're dedicated, but better humans than workers, right? Just like just good vibes all around.
Is that SaaS culture building different than kind of like our space, what we're doing in terms of brokerage? And
I mean, it's a little less locker room, right? It's a little less of like I love freight and logistics vibes because I played college sports, and I think there's like that competitive energy that you get in freight. It's maybe more so than any other industry, like just like really aggressive, hard-nosed, kind of gritty people. I think in the technology world, it's a different type of grit. Like we think we work hard in logistics. By the way, like I'm the most fraudulent member of Augment, right? Like I'm like the supply chain dude. The way that my team grinds, these like career technologists, like they're 7 days a week. They're just like, they're never not online. Like wow. Their stamina is off the charts. So that's like the one difference. Like I think, I prided myself all my whole career working hard and witnessing my peers at Augment work. Like they got energy. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
It's inspiring.
It is.
Being around that.
I'm 45 now. It's hard to keep up. Like I used to be the young dude. And I'm Uncle Hall now. And so it's hard to keep up. I got to get my sea legs back.
I think that's what we're looking forward to is like eventually bringing in some of the greener, like, entry level jobs and turning them into like the next wave of freight geniuses, because not that we are, but we're definitely the old guard now. Like I'm approaching 40 and I'm like, man,
old school is the best school.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I look at like the guys on our team, including us, were raised by Jeff and Marianne, and then being able to kind of take that knowledge we learned and pass it on. Obviously, you have to tweak it quite a bit because these days the brokerage market looks a lot different, and then I guess the whole space looks a lot different. But that kind of ties back into what you guys were doing too.
Are we going to get into millennial talk here?
We might.
Are we going to talk about how to raise and nurture this next generation here?
How to hide the gray hairs that I keep popping up in my beard. And yeah.
You guys are lucky. Jeff and Marianne built a phenomenal business. I haven't had a chance to meet her. They've raised some great kids. Jeff's a guy that, when I was in the business, he loved to hate, just like being a hater. Like I was so jealous of the Coyote brand and just the energy and growth he brought to the business. Like, what a cool business. And, he's kind of like the Bill Belichick, he's just like, you guys are part of that family tree of great coaches now that have gone off to start companies. And, CH was the original granddaddy of them all. You think of how many ex-CHers have gone off to just crush, but a lot of ex-Coyote folk are out doing amazing things, and Hoplite being one of them. And I credit you guys for taking all you learned and just like driving that forward, right? Because, I think at this point, when you join the industry, there's a lot that goes wrong in freight, right? Like, like freight is just like the world of edge cases. And if it can go wrong, it will, right, in transportation. And so if you don't have just incredible vibes and a culture where you're really nurturing people, why the hell would you do it? It's hard. It's a tough game. So I think you guys taking that playbook and carrying it forward is really smart.
They did a really good job with even when they started scaling mass of you feeling like you were bought in and part of it. Like when Coyote won, we felt like we won for a while. Eventually it got too big and like, you know, some of those vibes go away, but they did a really good job. Marianne, especially, like she built this culture where like everyone was bought in. And so we want to try to recreate that as we grow. And it's a lot easier when you're smaller, but I mean, you guys are growing like crazy fast. I'm sure you're going through some of the same, like the vibes are high because we're growing, but a couple of years from now, how do we keep that culture? Right. It's a challenge.
On that note, I think it's interesting. I feel like it's maybe a little bit ingrained in us, but we're constantly questioning how we're doing things and how we can do them better and more efficient. And that's where you guys like come in are making the impact and hopefully for our business too. It's really just like Bazooka was that way, or the way Jeff and Marianne built it, but also the leadership level too was constantly like, how do we do this better? How do we make this more efficient? How do we cut out this work? So we're very, demanding of our partners in that regard in terms of, and how we look at our business too. But I guess what I want to get into a little bit about Augment, and maybe for those that don't really know, can you go a background on, well, first yourself, but then also just jump into a little bit about the concept of Augment?
Sure. Well, my commercial is, I'm an SOB, son of a business owner. My dad started learning about logistics in the military. My dad served proudly in Vietnam, and he was an engineer by training, and joined an aviation company after the war and kept doing logistics, and then got recruited to 3M, which brought him out of Chicago to Minnesota, where I was raised. And but 3M's massive. And so I think I'll never forget this. We're driving through Montana, and we're in this like freaking old conversion van. And so it's me, my brother, my sister, my older siblings, and my folks, and my dad pulls over at a KOA, like those little campgrounds. Oh, yeah. And he's like, we're stopping here. And it was like kind of abrupt. We're like, okay. And he's like, I have to shower, and then we're going to get back on the road. And I'm like, oh, whatever. So me and my siblings were running around. This is in the late 80s. And he showers, goes to a payphone, and your young audience don't know what that is. Like you actually put a quarter in and you dial them. And he calls 3M, and he was a VP, ran all inbound transportation, had like 100 direct reports, and he calls and he quits. Right then and there, quits. And I'll never forget, I'm kind of laying in the back of this van, and my mom's crying in the front seat. And I come to find out she's crying because he had told her, he's like, I just quit my job. She's like, well, what are you going to do? He's like, I don't know, but I'm not going to be a part of this bureaucratic shit anymore. Like, I'm out.
Wow.
And like, what a gutsy move, like 3 kids. And at the time my mom wasn't working. So she was working from home, and I'm like, golly. So he started his own consulting practice, and in the 90s, he started building diskette-based software, right? This was back when you built rating engines and TMS and WMS on floppies. And my siblings and I used to put rubber binders around them, and we'd ship them out. If you had a new tariff and you had update your discounts, you had to send out all these floppies. It was crazy.
No, the viewers probably don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Although they would say, but
no, or record players, right? Or CDs, right?
I'd say Google it, but now we're ChatGPT.
Yeah. GPT it, baby. So sorry to be long-winded here, but so when he found, I remember he kept talking about the information superhighway in the 90s. This is pre-internet. And he's like, it's coming. It's coming. He was telling my brother and my brother was a big techie. And so my dad in the early 2000s during the dot-com fever, built one of the first web-based TMS systems. And so, I had gotten out of University of St. Thomas and went into finance, and I didn't want nothing to do with my dad and logistics. And it was him and these 3 old dudes. And they were using software to sort of be the lead behind for the consulting work they would do. And so when I joined in 2005, we were maybe 8 or 9 employees at that time. And as we sit right here, we're about 15 miles from, as a crow flies, from C.H. Robinson. I'm like, man, they've got to figure it out. Like, we should just start to copycat what they're doing. And so what I liked about the model, that, not knowing anything about freight brokerage, was just the recurring revenues of per transaction margins, right? I said, well, we're doing what today you call managed transportation. We were doing that just purely as consultants and delivering the software. I'm like, well, let's start to charge per transaction. And fast forward, we had built, I think, one of the finest managed trans organizations on the planet. And it was just a hell of a ride. We got it to about $250 million in revenue, and we sold it to Global Trans at the end of 2016. I remember having lunch with Bob Farrell at BGSA, and we didn't really run a process. We talked to TI and we talked to Global Trans. We ended up going Global Trans, and so my brother's technically still with him because Global Trans now sold to Worldwide Express, and love the guys at Worldwide. So I went to YRC, and I had the great pleasure of working for James Welch. Like, talk about an absolute legend. He's just still to this day a beauty. And so this was called YRC Worldwide at the time, then converted to Yellow, and now unfortunately the bankrupt Yellow. And Yellow Roadway was, we talk about CH giving birth to a lot of legends in this industry. Like, Yellow Roadway was the original OG. Like, most people that are doing anything came up through Yellow Roadway and then went off to start companies, be it in freight tech or in brokerage. And I got to join as their chief customer officer. It was a role that had never existed. The board was kind of not happy with the trajectory of the company, and they said, you need a disruptor. It's kind of a cheesy term now, but at the time it was really cool, like, hey, we got to bring in this disruptor. It's 2016. I'm in like my mid 30s. I'm like the youngest exec by like 15 years, whatever. But Welch loved me. And, and the reason I met James, and this is maybe, this will be a 10-minute background on who I am, by the way. Sorry to get long-winded. But like, every show I went to, I would highlight people that were going to attend. Every trade show, I was just like really intentional about circling who I wanted to meet. And I really wanted to meet James Welch at the time, the CEO of YRC, because like this guy had like, he was like evading like disaster after disaster. Like, I'm like, this must be a legendary leader if you can avoid, bankruptcy, and they almost got delisted from the NASDAQ. Like, all these things were going on with this company. I'm like, he's got to figure it out. I have to meet him. And I figured out, so this is how much I was sleuth. I'm like, I talked to a guy that worked for him. I'm like, what's his favorite drink? And he's like, he loves a Maker's Mark and Coke. And so I send him a message. I'm like, hey, I know you're going to be at this conference. It was BGSA. And I said, I'm going to buy you Maker's Mark Coke. Will you spend a half hour with me? And he said, yes. And then the next year I reached out to him again. I'm like, hey, I loved our conversation. Like, can we hang out? He's like, hey, you bringing your wife to this event? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, come to dinner. And so he and Jamie Pearson, the CFO at the time, another beauty, and all our wives, we went out to dinner, and James sort of like had made a comment that I didn't really think about it. That he said, hey, we're going to work together someday. And I don't know why he said it, but he was fond of me, and he said, yeah, we're going to work together someday. And the timing was incredible for me to be selling the company. And normally you have to enter a non-compete, but I said, hey, Bob, I'm like, the week prior to the close, James and Jamie had reached out. They said, hey, the board wants us to hire this outsider, like a non-asset guy. They want us to bring in, the CCO role. Will you do it? So I said, Bob, would you let me do that? I said, yeah. So we actually wrote it into the deal that he would let me go to YRC Worldwide. And anyway, so I helped run shared services and the commercial organization there. We built a cool brokerage called Henry, HNRY, and this was like, again, in the mid-teens, this was like everybody was like dropping the vowels to like name their company something really cool. And, so the H was for Holland, the N was for New Penn, right? The R was for Redaway, which was the West Coast regional, and then the Y for YRC. And we did a great job. We ran that up to $200 million quickly. It wasn't easy, because people that are like AEs or CAEs in the freight world, they didn't want to sell brokerage. Like, they were used to they were proud to sell assets. Right. So, it was a little bit of a heavy lift early on, but that was really fun. I have a number of people, by the way, that worked for me at Henry that are off running brokerages now. And I'll say there's nothing more fulfilling that I've enjoyed in my career than seeing people that I worked with go off and run companies, right? And so I don't know if you guys keep in touch with Jeff. If you don't, let him know what you're up to. Remind him how much you appreciate, your guys' time together, because there's nothing more fulfilling. It's like seeing your own kids go off and do something. But
We had a couple sales guys at Food Shippers that ran into him and let him know.
that's
And
cool.
he thought it was pretty cool. And like, yeah, we're proud of that. We're proud of our background, and similar, I'm sure to you are, like, it's formative for you.
Jeff speaks freaking 10 different languages or something. I mean, he's the most interesting man on the planet. Yeah. I was with him so after YRC, talk about pivots. I went from running a family 4PL, 3PL to, going to a $5 billion publicly held organization, Teamster organization, to then 8VC in the Bay Area. So I joined venture capital. They were looking for executive in residence. And so they started calling portfolio companies, and Jet was kind enough, and Craig Fuller was kind enough to bring my name up. And they're and I was trying to take a couple months off because at YRC I was commuting 45 weeks a year. And it's that's not healthy for marriage or fatherhood. And so I said no. And then this guy, Jake, who was one of the partners, no, get your ass out to SF. So I did. And I joined them in 19 and spent 3 years there. It was just awesome. I mean, and we can dive into that later, but that's actually how I met my co-founder, Harish. Harish was running a company called Deliver. I mean, freaking rocket ship. So Harish was top 100 hires at Amazon, helped build for the architecture for Fulfilled by Amazon with Jeff, and took that playbook. He started a few other companies, but eventually started Deliver, and Deliver was a high velocity, call it next day, 2-day fulfillment company for Shopify merchants. And he exited that company to Shopify for over $2 billion in 2022. That was the largest privately held company exit in 22 during COVID.
Wow.
And I was fortunate enough to invest, but also I was an advisor, and I had a chance to see Art, his co-founder and CTO, now our third co-founder for Augment. I get to see not only them build this beautiful company serving thousands of merchants, I got to see how they hired and how they mentored and how they just, made, to your point, even as they scaled, made everyone feel important and probably equally important and accountable. Everybody was accountable to the mission. They were very mission oriented, and a lot of the Amazonian principles, certainly permeated their way into Deliver and to this day at Augment. I think about how we operate today, and so much of the way we hire and hold ourselves accountable are rooted in Amazonian principles. So probably not a better company to try to mirror, right?
No, talk about a rocket ship. I mean, yeah, that's what everyone's aiming for.
I'm holding on and enjoying the ride. Harish is the rock star. He is, he's the real deal. And I've met phenomenal entrepreneurs in this space. Being in the venture capital game technically for over 5 years, I've had the chance to meet some real rock stars. Not many are built like Harish, and I don't ever try to be petty or disparage my competitors. I don't know that they give us the same respect, but I found you don't get ahead in life, putting others down. That said, when I talk to investors or potential customers, I'm not shy about telling them we're OGs, man. Myself, Harish, Art, our team. If you bet on us, you're betting on guys that have been around the block. We've seen a few things. I appreciate having you all as a customer. You've entrusted us. And I hope one of the things you took into account is, and nothing again, this is an age bias, but I look at my competitors and they don't have the scars we have. They haven't lived the life we have, personally or professionally. And I think there's great benefit in building a company and seen all that we've seen. We've built companies, we've sold companies, we've invested in companies, we've made a ton of mistakes and we've learned from them. And so, fast forward now, here we are, call it 8-9 months into our journey, over 80 people. We'll hire another 50 engineers by the end of the year. We're building AI teammates. 10 minutes into my long-winded intro, what I'll tell you about Augment is we certainly, like everybody, witnessed this generative AI wave that was starting to really take hold last year. I was a big time skeptic. I flew into Austin, Texas late last fall and sat down with a couple of the 8VC guys. Then the next day I sat down with Harish. I'm like, all right, what are you doing? Now in my head, I'm thinking like, if Harish is selling rubber freaking dog toys, I'm joining him. I don't care. This dude knows how to build companies and make money. But he started talking about agentic AI, and he's like, I want to build these AI teammates. You know, he goes, when I was at Deliver, I was a customer of transportation companies. I was a buyer of freight, and I hated it. You know, everything was asynchronous. And he always talked about the 5 o'clock problem. We all know what the 5 o'clock problem is, right? At 5 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock somewhere for somebody, and everything just shuts down. And he's like, we have to fix that. And he had witnessed his people just going through all the tedious and mundane and repetitive tasks that we know about, right? And whether you're at the shipper side of the game, or you're with a carrier, or you're with a brokerage, we all know about how tedious this business can be. And so after he sold his company, and then Shopify in turn had sold Deliver to Flexport, he stayed on, did his tour duty, and then attempted a sabbatical. He made it 3 weeks. Took his family to Spain. He made it 3 weeks. He's like, no, I got to get in the AI game. This is frontier. He's like, this is going to be bigger than the advent of the mobile, advent of the internet, advent of cloud computing. This is the thing. And he was so passionate and so excited about the impact that agentic AI could have on this industry, the T&L space. And I just said, I'm in 100%. Called my wife from Austin. I'm like, I'm in. I promised her I wouldn't operate again, because I'm like OCD. Once I'm in, it's like, I can't stop doing it. I'm like, hey, I told you I wouldn't do this again, but I'm doing it. And I'm doing it with Harish, and I know it'll be good for the family. So it has been.
Yeah. We, when we started this, I mean, the whole ethos behind Hoplite is like doing more with less.
Yeah.
Because the Hoplite Warrior was these smaller armies that were smarter and more tactical and could defeat larger armies. And we just love that ethos. Like when I came across that, I was like, man, that is perfect for what we want to do. And so we went into this knowing that at some point we were going to have the efficiencies behind, but we were very selective about what we wanted to partner with. So like we demoed all of them, and there's some pretty solid products out there. But yeah, man, I know we felt the enthusiasm. When I talked to you in Vegas, we talked for a long time. That happy hour, man, I was just like,
We might have had a couple Chardonnays.
yeah, maybe a couple tequilas there, but no, I mean, I just felt one, obviously your background is one thing, Harish's background, but what you guys are trying to do, like we saw like the projection of what we think Augment will be. So this is my little spiel of why we chose you, but why I was more comfortable is like, there's a lot of good options out there, but I think what you guys are doing, like it's the horse to bet on, man. So we're excited to be a partner there. But yeah, we see all the inefficiencies because we're dealing with it right now. Like Brian and I are AP department for the most part. It's like, that's long hours. Like we're in that stage right now where like every dime is important.
You're wearing every hat right now.
Yep.
There's us, right? Where we have these startup growing pains, and we're hitting them progressively as we keep getting to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, I know a lot of brokerages, some of them are tied to an asset, some of them just are standalone, but everything's like very primitive with how they operate and they do things, and they put a Band-Aid over things for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that Band-Aid has become like people and departments, and that's time wasted and energy wasted. And look at what you guys are doing, and it's like the perfect fit. And there's just so much need in the space,
Mm-hmm.
But it's unique to see how much you guys can and will do, and how you can fit with someone smaller growing like us, but also someone that's really large that has a lot of inefficiencies that they're kind of tied down to right now.
Yeah, it's frustrating, right? Like, so we have this kind of internal joke where we talk about, like our why tends to be people's names, like the Christinas, the Johnnies, people that we've shadowed, and we're like, man, they're commuting in for an hour at 5 a.m. They get to their monitor at 6:30, and there's freaking 50 emails already waiting for them, and they might get another 500 or 1,000 emails that day, and it's just reactive. And then they put in their 10-12 hour day, and then they commute home, and you're like, at no point typically during that 10-12 hour day were they doing the tasks that were in the original job description, right? Like that's what's crazy, right? Like it's like, well, no, you look at the JD, and it's like all these sexy things around optimization and analysis and problem solving and these things. And there's just not enough time in the day to do those things proactively. And in your case, on behalf of your shippers. And so you guys have a clean slate. What I love about Hoplite, when we were talking in Vegas, I'm like, man, you guys, you get to handpick your own software, right? And not make mistakes. You get to handpick your people. You get to be really surgical with what modes do you want to support? What, verticals do you want to penetrate? Like, clean slate. It's a beautiful thing. I think the key with agentic AI, and again, I applaud anybody in this space, all my competitors, for what they're attempting to do, because what they're attempting to do is to free up logisticians' time to be logisticians, right? Not worker bees. A logistician, is somebody that's supposed to analyze a network. Is supposed to really look at a shipper's network, inbound, outbound, third-party drop, and say, how do we do it better? That's awesome, right? Like, how do we think more critically about how we source, who we partner with? How can we be great shippers of choice? Like, people don't even say shipper of choice anymore, right? Because they've been just kicking the shit out of carriers and brokers for the last 3+ years. So I get to say that. I don't have to kiss any shipper's ass. Man, it's been a hell of a recession, unlike anything I've ever seen. And so I would say, one, people need to talk to folks like Augment right now, because everyone's trying to lower cost to serve. Every board in America is talking about lowering OpEx and lowering cost to serve. So it's a good time to be, selling an automation, a workflow automation, platform like Augment. That said, our mission is more around like the Johnnies and the Christinas. Like, how do we give them a more fulfilling day? How do we take the mundane, tedious, and repetitive off their plate? Maybe not completely, but try to get 80-90% of it off their plate, so that they have the time to better engage the shipper community, better engage their carrier partners. Really think critically around, how do I mode shift? How do I do pooling? How do I, help them think about, literally the geographies that they should have, their inventory, for example. If I'm forward stocking for rapid fulfillment of finished goods, or if I'm thinking better or more critically around, how do I get raw material in for production? That's the work that matters for shippers, not 3 bids in a cloud of dust, not sitting back and answering tracking emails. Like, it's just, it's just not an enjoyable craft in general.
So are those low-hanging fruit you're working within, like email platform and the TMS, would the harder stuff be looking across all the different platforms you have? Like, if you have a rep who has to schedule across 4 or 5 platforms, is that's tough? That's going to be the stuff that's going to be tougher because of the multiple systems. Like, how are you guys tackling that?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, we're trying to solve a bit of I used to talk about death by email, right? Originally it was death by phone call, then death by email. Now it's death by application. I go shadow folks and I look at their monitors, and there's like, 20 tabs up. Everyone's just swivel seating tab to tab to tab. So we want to solve that. It's not easy, right? So you've got, third-party applications you need to go bid in if you're doing, quoting. You've got third-party apps for scheduling. You've got apps you got to go upload invoices to. There's just a lot that goes on. And so we're not there, but man, we're making a lot of progress. I think we're going to get to a point where, you think about Augie, our AI teammate, being a junior employee. At some point, the mission is that it's going to be your most tenured and your most knowledgeable employee. Like, that is the hope. What's great, so like AI is thrilling and terrifying, right? Like, I got a 13 and 14-year-old. And I talk to my wife about this. I'm like, shit, I don't know what the hell I should tell them to study in college. Like the future of work is going to be different, And I'm not dystopic. Like, I'm like very bullish on AI being good for society, right? I know I veer off in tangents, but like, this is an important one for the audience. Like, think of like loved ones in your life, friends or family that are sick today, or maybe that you've lost, especially to, terrible things like cancer, right? Like, I lost my old CFO to cancer, 44 years old, just a baby. And I think to myself, I'm like, all right, if AI can help us, cure horrible diseases faster, if AI can help us shrink the learning gap, right? And you think of like the education system, like, I'll just pick on Minnesota. If you are fortunate enough to live out in some of the nice suburbs, some of the best schools in the country, I think we're top 3 in America in education, if you're lucky enough to be out in some of these key suburbs. If you're in some of the urban schools here in the Twin Cities, I call it inside the loop. I think we're like bottom 5. And so that's a huge gap, right? AI can help shrink that gap. Worldwide, not nationwide, worldwide. So there's incredible things that AI is promising as hell in the medical and bioscience world, promising as hell in education. When we think about white collar work specifically, we can get into blue collar and robotics, but I'll just talk about more the world that we live in. We just have to think about, what is AI going to enable us to do? This isn't about it. Logistics is still a people sport. We call it a teammate because we just believe everyone needs an assistant. Your job is to give the assistant the stuff you don't want to do, so you can spend more time on the stuff you do want to do. And so I'm very bullish on AI. I think it's important for our industry. I think it's going to give us an opportunity to be a way better version of ourselves. I think when Hoplite approaches its shipper base, and if Augment can make good on our promise, and we're not there yet, but we will be, 24/7, you guys are going to be delivering on your promise. And that's our job, to come alongside you and make sure that you're doing all the things that you're telling them you're able to do for them. So,
Yeah.
Love that.
I read an article recently talking about how like every 80 years it's like an age of something new. And like this is our new age we're getting into, the age of AI. It's going to change the world. It really is, which is not logistics related, but I feel the same way. But it should make our business a lot more efficient and smoother. And the one thing I really am bullish on out of the gates is just eliminating some of the burnout. I mean, we've all been beating our heads now for a while. We've been in the trenches, like trying to grow this, and just getting Augie up and running is like, it eliminates them from all the monotonous work you're talking about, and they can get back to selling, and we don't have to hire as fast. And I mean,
what do you guys think industry churn is right now for brokerage?
I really don't know.
Like a sub 3-year rep, sub 2-year even. Yeah.
In terms of like the last 20 years, it's got to be approaching the highest it's ever been. I mean, we've been in this trough now and there's no end in sight really, which is the scary part.
We see it. We talk to people. We see people's LinkedIn constantly change, and guys jumping ship or getting let go. And I mean, even like for a sales rep, like it's the expectation of what they should produce in the first like 3-4 months is just unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
But now the expectation of what they have to do outside of that is unrealistic too. There's a lot of cradle models out there, and they're requiring the reps to do more because they're trying to cut where they can. So, I mean, having something like Augie in there would be fantastic because that's scaled.
Yeah. What else is Hoplite doing to attract and retain talent?
Well, we got some things on the line we want to do from a work-life balance that I think are pretty exciting, but we're just not there yet. That we think will be kind of not seen in the industry before.
Yeah, I would say we get really good balance. I'm being honest, for a startup. We set up the infrastructure really strong, so we have a lot of strong partners, and we give our reps like a lot of really great tools, like all the tools, which I think a lot of startups don't do out the gate. We set that infrastructure first, so they come in every day and they have all the tools at their hands to be the best that they can. And then we make sure that they have as much balance as possible, and they're not trying to be sucked into things after hours or weekends. The reality is they still do, but we're working our hardest to try to cut that out. I think you guys help on that.
We need to help you with nights and weekend. I know that.
Yeah. I mean, we're a team of 10. We have some planned hires in the next couple months, which is exciting to still be growing. I mean, that's been the goal this year, was to like grow responsibly. But I'm proud of the fact that in a year and a half now, we haven't ever had to turn someone down to PTO, our team size, and we haven't had anyone that's like, I mean, I'm sure everyone's a little tired at times. We all are, but we're all in it together. But I'm proud of that, just because, you know, they still feel like, okay, if it's my turn to be out, then that's okay, because I was filling in for someone when they needed the time. And so there's like this, everyone feeds off each other and has that family time that's needed. And, you know, everyone's bought in. We did like a bottom up feedback not that long ago and just said, this is completely anonymous. Like, we want the feedback. And it was really high. And I think that's been one of our prouder moments too, is,
you know, Justin, Rich and I talk about this, and we talk about the tools and everything that we have and what of that matters to the shippers.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking to our customers or potential shippers, what's important to them. And we kind of wondered more about your product. Do they really care that we're using it? Does it make an impact? Obviously, I think it's better, you know, you can train AI, and eventually AI doesn't make the errors that humans make. But I guess, what does that look like downstream for a customer? Does a shipper really care about that?
Well, It's a good question. I'll answer. I'd be remiss if I didn't backtrack real quick. One, I think you guys are super authentic dudes, so don't take that for granted. Like the way you treat individuals and just really being real with them. And think about like in work, we spend time often, most weeks, more time with your work family than your own family, right? And so the fact you're being that thoughtful and considerate of work-life balance for your team, if you can maintain that and make good on that promise, you're gonna definitely, be the type of employer people want to join. Not everybody makes good on that promise. So I think that's really dope. Today is actually my 20th anniversary. So I almost bailed on you guys because I'm going to go fly out to, so like, this is like the classic, like, you've been married 20 years. My wife's out in Connecticut for dance with my daughter, Stella. And then G and my son, Gavin, and I are going to Vegas tomorrow night for his basketball. He's at AAU basketball out there. But anyways, in the old school days, like, she just was like literally a single mother. Like, I just traveled and worked, and like that was what you did. You know what I mean? Like, it was like this badge of honor. It's such bullshit. Like, I lost tons of years I wish I could have back. And I dodged out on a lot of responsibility in the home front, sort of chasing my dreams. So if you guys, like, I'm not trying to be overly emotional with you guys, but if you can make good on that for your employees and let them, be coaches, be good moms and sisters or brothers or fathers, like that's a hell of a recipe. And if you can sustain that, I would do it. To your question, sorry to get all emotional on you guys. I would say the promise of Augment being your partner is that we will not quit until we can serve you order to cash, all modes, all loads. Like, I am dead serious. Like, we are going to be the one AI vendor out there that doesn't quit, that doesn't stop hiring, doesn't stop innovating until we can support front office, mid office, back office, every mode, every shipment. And the initial promise to you guys, and I'll get to your shipper, the initial promise to you is we're going to lower the cost to serve. Like, I said this at the SMC3 conference when I was on that panel. I'm like, my EBITDA in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, like, was better than what you guys are enjoying today, which is crazy, right? Like, there's been so much advent of all the stuff from mobile to cloud computing to freight tech. And yet people are still operating like 2-3% EBITDA. Like, it's crazy. Like, that's not okay. You've got to be able to improve. Like, I think AI and workflow automation can bring 200-400 bips of improvement to the bottom line, like that much, like legitimate. That improves enterprise value. What that does for the shipper, fast forwarding, is that one, we talked about freeing up time for people to do the work that matters, right? Like, if you can go to a shipper and say, you're shipping 19 times a week LTL, we could lower that to 11 just by building bigger BOLs. Like, we're not planning. And you can go to every shipper in America, and like, whether they're distributed because they're working from home or they're distributed literally cube to cube, like, they're just not coordinated in how they buy product, right? Or how they think about fulfillment. And so when you get upstream enough and you start thinking about, how do I plan shipments at the point where I'm either fulfilling orders or I'm planning to buy because I've got inbound material coming in, like, that's exciting. And you can help them do that. I think, like, I think sometimes when shippers decide where they're going to have a depot or a distribution center or a manufacturing facility, they might be, thinking about, proximity to talent or proximity to natural resources, whatever it might be. But oftentimes they've not done the work to heat map and think about, like, well, how close am I to suppliers? Like, think of like the Toyota way, or how close am I to the right customers I need to be with? Or maybe I don't need facilities. Maybe I should be using all third parties, and who should I use? Like, they need that referral. And so you're the connective tissue for that shipper. If they need a new customs broker for Canada or Mexico or offshore, if they need to think, man, there's all this tariff stuff going on. How do I make any sense of this tariff stuff? You need to be that answer for them. Being the answer around just tracking and tracing and clicking and data entry and all this shit, that's like not being a logistician. It's just being a worker bee.
I feel like you're helping us get back to that role, which is, this hits home to me because I've sat in that room with shippers so many times, and you ask you pry and you ask the questions, you learn about their business, and then you sit there and realize I'm just a small little piece into that big overall supply chain. I have
Yeah.
to be a bigger piece.
Yeah.
I have more to share, I have more to offer, which is why we do cross-border Mexico, because we have the team that has the knowledge and we've been doing it for so long. And we help scale it up at, the Coyotes and the Rives of the world. And, being able to sit there in that room and offer more is like what I love to do. But when you could sit there and just say, well, I'm just like one little piece in your transportation world, to me, it's not meaningful enough.
Yeah.
And maybe your product can help us get there one day.
So here's like holy grail for me is this. Like, one, I do think AI agents, again, this is maybe more on the terrifying, not thrilling side of things, is that I think AI agents will have the ability not only to persist knowledge, but to have context and the ability to portray judgment, on decisions that need to be made. Now, humans are today, and I think forever will be better at judgment, right? AI today stinks at judgment. But over time, if you accumulate enough data, we talk about knowledge a lot. We call our Augie, we're building something called the Knowledge Hub. And so every shipment we see, every load note we read, every WhatsApp, Telegram, text or email or phone call that we witness, Augie's never forgetting. It's crazy. It's never forgetting. It's like one mind, many voices. And so it's sitting there alongside all of these employees, seeing all of these transactions, and it's just accumulating that knowledge to include customer SLAs. If you have enterprise shippers, they have unique business rules. You've got to follow them, right? The beauty of AI is it doesn't cut corners. So you talk about shipper experience, like AI doesn't cut corners. If there's an SLA in place for Nestle, for Purdue, for the Home Depot, whoever your enterprise account might be, AI is going to follow the SOP to a T. Now, what happens over time, though, is that both tribal knowledge and documented knowledge are persisted, and Augie can call on that. Think of the way you prompt ChatGPT today, or Perplexity, or Claude, whatever your flavor might be, and it comes back to you with this incredible information. And what's going to happen is that Augment's promise to our customers is we're going to create Augie GPT for your domain, for Hoplite's domain. So imagine the day where your employees are able to prompt Augie with questions. Hey, for this lane, who should I use? What should I pay? What's been my average spread? For this carrier, what's been their service profile? You're going and getting ready for an MBR or QBR. Augie, help me get ready for this QBR. And it's just spitting out the information you need, but it's your information, right? It's your carriers, it's your shippers, it's their facilities, it's your ethos. And the beauty, that's the promise of agentic AI. Lowering costs to serve through workflow automation is dope, right? Everyone wants to make better money and allow their people to work on the things that matter. But the knowledge factory, the knowledge hub, which I think is probably more like a good 4 to 6 quarters out from now, is where things get really thrilling, because Augie at some point is actually going to prompt its counterpart, right? Remember, everyone on the team needs an Augie, right? Imagine if you're in HR, you're in sales, you're in operations, you're in recruiting, and Augie's signaling you with information proactively. This is happening. This will happen. This is like probably like a year out. And then at that point, your team is saying, okay, Augie just told me that, outbound Georgia is really problematic right now because of X, Y, and Z. And I see that you in Q have like 7 shipments picking up next week out of Athens. And you need to be aware of X, Y, and Z. Like, that's the promise of AI. And that's where we get even more precise in how we procure, how we pick the right carriers. And in the end, that's going to be good for the shipper. They're going to have better, more proactive information. They're going to have, the ability to avoid, the late deliveries that cost them money. All the things that shippers are trying to do to make good by their end customer will be better enabled by companies like Hoplite, because you're choosing intentionally right now to make the decision that I'm going to join the AI journey. Everyone else is sitting on the sideline saying, like, I don't know if I want to get into it yet. I'm going to kind of set back and see what happens. It's a bad decision. It's a poor decision. People that want to wait 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 4 quarters from now to dip their toe in the waters, it'll be too late. You guys will be more competitive. That's the promise of AI.
Love that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, the pace that it's learning. I keep reading about, the capabilities, and even like you said, a year from now, 2 years from now, are going to be PhD level on every topic and everything ever. It's pretty exciting. But
the biggest issue in our space there's a lot of issues in the transportation logistics, right? That's why they need brokers. Is tribal knowledge. 20 years in this space, the one thing that's always haunted me is when I lose people, whether it's because they quit or we had to let them go, they found a better job, or they retired, is how much knowledge walks out the door with them, right? Right. Just the acute understanding that logisticians have around their customers, just weird location level details that you might need to know. Like, hey, I know that Raycon said they're open, from, 12 to 12. No, they're not. They don't open till 8 a.m. Central, right? Like, hey, if you need to get documentation with this carrier, you've got to call Patty and dispatch. Don't call anybody else. Patty gets it done. Those are maybe not great examples, but the point being is that humans are great at accumulating just this really like nuanced information and data that over time, Augie's witnessing that and extracting that and persisting that. And so at some point, we believe your AI assistant, your AI teammates will be your best HR in training. So when you hire a new employee, because Susie or Johnny or Christina left, that new employee is going to, in like 2 weeks, they're going to be caught up to speed. That's pretty exciting.
What's the the most challenging thing in this journey so far for Augment? Because the industry itself, the technology, everything is like ever changing every day. So I got to imagine you guys have faced some pretty difficult challenges so far. Just curious.
Well, I mean, we're beyond ambitious by wanting to build out an infinite number of both standard and customized workflows, right? Like I said, like we want to touch everything, order to cash, all modes. And so that in and of itself is difficult. Integrations are hard. I think I wouldn't call it a mistake. Early on, I think we wanted to have like the most robust and beautiful API integrations with everybody. And now we're just like, let's just get them off the ground with flat files. Like, let's just start showing value and then mature our way to a better, more robust bidirectional integration. So, that I think, just a lot of learnings. What also I think is difficult too is just like, you can't put a price tag on shadowing. Like I wish like we could just be on the road even more than we already are. Like I've been on the road every week, but 1 or 2 since Christmas. So I just think you learn so much when you're out seeing how people interact with their systems, seeing how they interact with customers and carriers. We're really working hard on working with fleets right now. We want to be the first, agenda company to really go out and drive value with LTL carriers, truckload carriers, drayage carriers. And so like, it's been thrilling for me to see my product and engineering. We do a lot of forward deployment of product and engineering folks, but to see them get into the physical world and see all the, the dark, dirty and dangerous shit that's involved with trucking, but when they see it in a different lens. Like I said, like I'm an old school freight guy. When you send really smart whippersnapper engineers out into the field, it's like the Palantir model. Like we forward deploy these engineers and they see how people are working. They're like, no, that doesn't make sense. No, we're going to fix that. They get it like that. And so that's been hard, right? Like, cause when you have them on the road, we all know how big of a pain in the ass travel is. Shoot, you were delayed 5 hours last night, right?
Yeah.
And so just like the joys of travel are also hard because those are hours typically that they would just be banging out code or building products. So I wish we could have our smartest people on the road more, but we're trying to do our best.
It's awesome, man. I got to imagine that your dad's decision played like a formative role in the route you took, because I mean, that's a hell of a gamble to make. I think Brian and I both feel, we did it. Like we're the first ones in our family really to take that leap. So it's pretty cool. And that's just a cool story to hear.
Yeah, Rich,
Appreciate that.
Rich quit the day after I got let go.
I saw the tea leaves and I was like, I can't go through this whole process again, man. It was maddening to think about. And like we had already started talking about this. And I was like, if we're going to do it, I don't want a fucking safety net. Yeah. Like we're just going to jump and that's going to be, you have to sink or swim. And so we still got a long way to go, man, but it's been really fun to see. There's something about taking like this idea that was like a napkin and now like we're on pace for like 14, 15 million this year. And like we got high, aspirations, but holy shit, man. Like sometimes you have to just sit back and be like, damn, look at what we've done.
Yeah. You and I, we usually sit back for like a minute and then we're back to it.
Yeah. It's gutsy though. I'll give you guys a ton of credit, man. I had the luxury of working for my dad. It's just like, that was just really dope. There was many years where I just felt like a fraud. I'm like, oh, I'm always going to be Larry Hall's son, and then like you mature and you have kids and I'm like, wow, what a blessing. Why would I like run from that? Like it was such a joy to learn how to be a leader and a caretaker of your employees. I'm like, my folks, my mom worked in the business too. My siblings worked in the business, and we truly treated it like a family business. And you can ask anybody that worked for the Halls, they were a Hall. Everybody was an extension. And I would say, and my parting words of wisdom for you too is just like, keep it a family. If 12 people turns into 120, make sure it's still a family business, right? I know you guys well enough to know that'll be the case. The thing I'll tell you too, if any shippers end up watching this, choose a hoplite, right? You want to be the bigger fish in the smaller pond. The hard part of scaling, and this is not to disparage many of which are my customers, but large 3PLs, but it's really hard to maintain that culture, and it's really hard to be customer first. You start introducing outside capital and just the stresses of becoming a several $100 million or a several $1 billion company. I think it actually pulls a little bit of the love of the game out of you. You get a little bit robotic about things, and unfortunately, and that's not because people are, this isn't to disparage people that have scaled great companies, but it's just harder to put the customer first. It's harder to put the employee first because the bottom dollar inevitably becomes number one when you scale. So just really revel and embrace the size you are now. And I'd say if you're a shipper, you don't be shy about working with smaller shops. These days, everyone has access to capacity. You have your insurance. You have all the technology in place to be able to provide the same experience they're going to get from $1 billion outfit. The difference is that you're going to know who they are by first name, right? That's your superpower right now. Embrace it.
We kind of have. I mean, that's been our value add is like, we've been at those big shops. We know how they're run. We have that tribal knowledge and we've incorporated it, but like, no one's going to outwork us. You're going to be a priority. And, you need something, we're there one phone call away. And you can't say that about some of the bigger operations. It's tough to scale that. So we understand, like we saw it with Coyote. They got to a certain size and it was like, well, it's not the same feel anymore, but also they're making more money than they ever have. Like that's the evolution of that business. But, we're happy where we're at, but we have a long way to go. We want to grow this thing.
You can tell the prospect, look, my mortgage is literally on the line here. You know what I mean? So, well, good to be with you all, man. I got to tune in. I'm stoked you guys have a podcast. It's great to get back to the, logistics community like this.
Well, we're still learning in that regard too. I mean, I think the first one I listened to it again the other day. I'm like, it's pretty choppy, but yeah, it's getting used to this forum. But thanks again, dude. Thanks for.
Yep. Cheers.
Ramp up, never hit the brakes. Break it down day to day. Show the people what it takes.